Jamal Kelly here. KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And the news took a different turn today. I thought it was just going to be a normal news day. And then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. Once again, I'm talking about former President Trump going to Chicago for the NABJ convention. Full disclosure, I'm a member of NABJ. It's the National Association of Black Journalists. They have a convention every single year. It's usually this time in the summer. And what it's comprised of is you have journalists from all around the country. You have people who are media professionals, and they will go to the convention. You have the top companies, the top news agencies, top entertainment companies. And it's a big, I wouldn't say it's a job fair, but it's a place that you can find a job. You can take your reel. You can take your art portfolio. You can take any of your assets that you can show to these professionals. Sometimes they are hiring agents, and you could possibly get a job. You get greater exposure. I've gone on a number of occasions, so I know what NABJ looks like in a convention sense. It's a convention. You have panels and you have all sorts of forums. Learn how to do this. Learn how to do that better. Get a better high-paying job. Typical convention. And it's not uncommon that they would have political figures, elected officials, speak during the convention, especially during an election year. This, though, was very controversial. There were a lot of people within NABJ who voiced opposition to hearing from former President Trump come to the convention and speak. Me personally, I have to give former President Trump credit for this. I think it's important for all elected officials to go out and seek votes, to go to the community and actually make their case before voters. You have to, if you want someone's vote, you have to earn their vote. You just can't talk on TV. You can't necessarily phone in a conversation. You can't appear virtually. You actually have to show up. So credit to former President Trump to actually going to Chicago and showing up. But that doesn't mean that whatever you say is okay after you show up. When former President Trump showed up, I think everyone knew it would not have been an easy conversation. It would not have been a comfortable conversation. There were going to be some very pointed and direct questions. What I wanted to know was whether he was showing up to just have a fight or whether he was showing up trying to actually change people's minds, trying to actually gain votes and also build his larger coalition and constituency. Or was it just going to be more of the same? Here is the first question and answer to former President Trump at NABJ earlier today.
I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late, just so we understand. I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love
think
if
it's
you can answer the question
nasty
on your
question.
And why you
I have
that
answered the
black folks
question.
should trust you with another 4
I have
years.
been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act.
For you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
I'm not going to go back and forth about the inaccuracies, the fallacies, and the untruths in that statement. Don't have enough time in the world. I gave former President Trump credit for showing up, and I want every elected official or candidate to show up. That's what you're supposed to do. And as a matter of fact, Vice President Kamala Harris has not shown up, did not show up to NABJ. She wanted to Zoom in and address the convention remotely. I don't like that, and I don't appreciate that. But I don't appreciate what former President Trump said. If you are there in earnest, in an aspirational sense, to either build bridges or build your constituency, then you have to actually extend an open hand, not a closed fist. And it was clear that he wanted to box. It was clear that his intended audience was not in the room. He was trying to appease people who were watching, who were already Trump supporters, not actually build a bridge and broaden his coalition. There's one other clip that you're going to hear for the next few days, and maybe the goal was just to own the news cycle for the next day or two. And former President Trump will do that. This will own the news cycle. But he had some very curious and also untrue statements regarding Vice President Harris, and I don't know why he continues to intentionally mispronounce her name. It's not difficult. It seems at this point that it is intentional, but it surrounded how Vice President Harris supposedly has never claimed that she was black. This is absolutely untrue, and I can give you evidence to that. But here is what actually was said, unedited, in the convention today.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition of
Sir,
that.
I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me if you
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no, I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is
somebody should look into that too when you ask continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans have said?
I really don't know. I mean, I really don't know. Could be.
Okay, just as a point of clarification, Vice President Harris, for whatever reason, I don't know why this is an issue, and I don't know why former President Trump tried to distort actual history. Vice President Harris has always presented herself as a black woman and also a South Asian woman. I first met her in 2006 when I was a radio producer for Tavis Smiley, and he was producing this event called State of the Black Union. You may remember it. It was on C-SPAN every single year. In 2006, she was one of the panelists. Let me say it again. State of the Black Union. It's a black roundtable. They're talking about black issues, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But I was also a radio producer for the audio of that confab. Now, I want you to listen to this audio, the we's, the us's, and the proclamation that she is an African-American woman. And I don't know why it's an issue, but if you can bear with the quality of the audio, it's not great. But I just want you to hear definitively, this is not an issue. It's not even a question up for debate.
Our communities suffer because our babies hear the gunfire every night, so the 7-year-old has post-traumatic stress disorder and cannot go to school the next day and learn. The criminal justice system is not working for us. What I think we have failed to do as a community, however, is own this issue of law enforcement. We talk about these statistics in the context always of it is unfair, it's morally incorrect. Maybe we have learned that from the church. It is morally incorrect. But nobody cares about that. You can look at Katrina. Nobody cares about the fact that we've got a bunch of young black brown men in prison. That argument is not working. What I suggest we do as African Americans is own this issue in law enforcement and then define it in the way that works for us. Did
you hear that? We African Americans?
We do as African Americans. Working. What I suggest we do as African Americans is own this issue in law enforcement and then define it in the way that works for us.
Let me just say this as a coda to the conversation today. Former President Trump, again, deserves credit for showing up. All candidates should show up. But I don't think he changed any minds. I don't think that he opened any inroads. I don't think he gained any voters. I don't know that he gained any traction. I don't think the NABJ was better served by this forum. I don't think anyone gained anything at all. But if it was about just owning the news cycle, if it was about being combative once again in front of the quote unquote mainstream media, or somehow castigating journalists once again as part of his larger platform, then I guess mission accomplished. But I believe a presidential candidate should be above the fray. I believe a presidential candidate should exhibit decency, dignity, and decorum. That was not on display.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And if you didn't know, I often remark how I'm not a real good person when it comes to flying. I begrudgingly get on a plane. I'm not a nervous flyer, but I'm uncomfortable. It's not something that I like to do, but I like to travel. So it's one of those things where I just have to grin and bear it. And I know all the stats. I know it is the safest way to travel. When you're talking about the number of flights which take off and land each day and the infrequency of fatalities, you know, it's not often that a plane ends up in the side of a mountain or in the ocean. I get all that. And then people will respond to me also saying, hey, you know, you're more likely to die in an automobile accident. And statistically, that's true. In fact, in LA, it's very true. So I try to reconcile those two things. And I came across this story that LA is on pace for more than 300 traffic deaths this year. And to put that in perspective, back in 2017, there was only 131. 2018, 125. And we think, well, what about during the pandemic? I know, great question. I had the same question myself. 2019 was 126. And you would think that there'd be a large drop off in 2020 because there were fewer places for us to go. It wasn't like we were going to the movies. It wasn't like we were going to the nightclub or to the bars, going to the restaurants in the way that we were normally. Yeah, we could pick up some food, to-go food, but we weren't driving like we usually were. I mean, I know this because I had to drive to come to the studio, and there was never a bad day for traffic. Never. Not during the pandemic. Why? Because there were fewer cars on the road. And maybe you might say that because of that, people were driving unnecessarily, dangerously, faster than normal. But in 2019, we had 126 traffic fatalities. And I think this is LA City, not LA County. In 2020, there were 114 fatalities. So only a drop off of 12 during the height of the pandemic. 2021, 152, higher than pre-pandemic. 2022, 168. 2023, last year, 174. Can you see this trend? And so far in 2024, and we're only knocking on the door of August. We still got August, September, October, November, and December. We have a good 5 full months. We already have 170 traffic deaths. We had 174 all last year, We have 170 right now, and we're on our way to 300. I think about this, if only because I don't have a real long commute, but long enough where stuff could happen. I don't actively think about it, but it's something that I don't think about it as much as when I'm flying, but it's something that I'm starting to think about more and more. And I've talked about this with Mark and also Tawala. There's some idiots out there who are driving with such reckless abandon. There are people who speed, and there are people who are just dangerous with the weaving in and out of traffic, the tailgating, doing the things like they're watching a Fast and Furious movie. And it's not how well you think you can drive. It's about the other people who may not be able to see you or react to you in time.
I think these people think they get to respawn if they get in a crash. That's the only explanation for this, because they drive like kamikazes.
I drive fast. I admit that. Is that a contradiction? Maybe, but I'm not the one who's weaving in and out and doing all this insane stuff that is just really putting a lot of other people in danger.
And for what? A car length or two? I mean,
at most?
It seems nuts to me.
What I notice most about this report, Mo, and it's interesting that you glossed over it, not a single incident related to vehicular death this year is associated.
Here we go.
Driverless vehicles. Not a single one. There isn't a single report of a driverless vehicle fatality in this report. These are all cars driven by people.
Let's also talk about sample size, where you have, I don't know, millions and millions of cars every single day, and you have a handful of Waymos. If we had a handful of cars with just drivers and millions and millions of Waymos.
I hear you. But this is L.A. This is an L.A. Specific survey. Where is Waymo rolled out? L.A. specifically. So I'm saying, LA.
Sample size matters.
Yeah,
size matters.
I hear you, sample size, but up to this point, there is no self-driving car fatality.
Okay, let's go back to the issue of flying. If I were to tell you that, hey, we had a whole 575 flights today and none of them crashed, and then we're also going to look at the 500,000 other flights over the past, I don't know, I'm just making this up mathematically, over the past 2 or 3 years, we're not talking about the same thing.
Are any of the flights flown by autopilot alone, self-driving planes?
It still goes back to sample size. If we have as many cars or as many trips, which are comparable to drivers in automobiles, then I think we can have a better sense. If most of the cars out there were autonomous, then we get a better sense of whether they are overall safer and they are better for people taking us all around the city, or is it just they're good on a very limited basis, a very small basis.
And this sample size, they even break it down within the last 6 months and also May and June, where there were still smaller sample size or smaller window, 19 fatalities, still none driverless vehicle. I hear you. I hear your sample size. I hear you. And they actually detail that in this report. I just want to make sure that we're telling the whole story that's not being told, because we like to look further than what's being reported.
It's almost like you're saying, hey, no one died from anthrax this year. Well, how
anthrax is not out there right now.
You sure?
I mean, who's reporting on anthrax?
No, but I'm just saying it has to do with sample size, and it has to do with availability. It has to do with the ubiquitous nature of it.
That is why I want to make sure we keep our eyes on this story.
See, this is a plant story.
No, it's not. No,
you planted this just so you could make your cockamamie remark about autonomous vehicles.
I'm just saying. I just wanted to make sure.
People are dying.
I wanted to make sure that you saw that there are no autonomous vehicles listed in this report.
Check his bank account. Check it.
He's getting paid under the table. No doubt. No doubt. It's Later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Later with Mo Kelly on KFI AM 640.
Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Governor Newsom has said publicly that he vows to support bills that crack down on deep fake election content. I saw this story and I said, oh, I want a piece of this one. You may remember on Monday, Newsom reposted a news headline that said Elon Musk had posted an altered campaign ad of Vice President Harris, and it appeared to use an AI-generated voiceover from her. So it sounded like her, it looked like her, and it was very close to a legitimate campaign ad. Governor Newsom wrote on social media that, quote, manipulating a voice in an ad like this one should be illegal, close quote. Oh, I should say, and he went on to say, I'll be signing a bill in a matter of weeks to make sure it is. Elon Musk responded by saying, quote, parody is legal in America, close quote. Let's get into this. This is a great example of words have meanings, and let's be clear on what we're discussing. A parody is something which is done for comedic sense, and it is recognizable as such. Let me give you an example. Weird Al Yankovic did the song Eat It, which is a parody of Michael Jackson's Beat It. We all know that. Weird Al Yankovic obviously was doing it for comedic purposes, and no reasonable person would have thought that that was Michael Jackson singing Eat It, or Michael Jackson was performing that song in any way. No reasonable person. And also, Weird Al Yankovic did not use Michael Jackson's voice. He didn't use Michael Jackson's face. He didn't use Michael Jackson's body in any way. That's why it was a parody. And also, most importantly, he got permission from Michael Jackson to use it because it was intellectual property, which was copyrighted. When you talk about campaign ads, it has to be clear that it's actually for the purpose of parody, and it's not for deception. There's a difference there. If you're trying to reasonably confuse people or deceive people, then it's no longer a parody. If you had Kamala Harris dancing around like those jib jab videos, you know, we all had those jib jab videos once upon a time, and there's music in the background and you're making fun, that is a legitimate parody. But if you're trying to pass something off as passable, as plausible, as seemingly coming from the actual person, and you're using their name and their likeness, and I'm telling you, because Donald Trump will tell you the same, name, image, and likeness is a real thing, and I'm sure Donald Trump has copyrighted his name, image, and likeness. In other words, you just can't put his face on a T-shirt and try to sell it. You can't use his voice in something that you're trying to sell or distribute without permission, especially when you're talking about other political figures or elected officials. It has to be, you have to get either permission, or it has to be clear that it's a parody and not actually coming from the person. When we're talking about deepfake AIs, generated videos, those are created expressly for the purpose of deceiving people, for the purpose of tricking people, for the purpose of having you believe that the person in that video actually said that or actually did that, when neither is true. So that doesn't make it a parody. Elon Musk is correct. Parody is legal in America. But what is going on with deepfake AIs, that, depending on the circumstance, it could very easily be proven that it's illegal and not in the spirit of a parody. And there's also something else, and it's something that I've talked about. I know Mark Ronner, as a news advocate, has talked about. When you're talking about elections, when you're talking about dissemination of information, accuracy is important. And if you have something which is specifically out there to deceive people or have you believe untrue things about a person, then we are undermining our own elections. We are undermining our own democracy. We are taking our own country to a place where it will be on the verge of ruination, where if it's open season on, we can make videos of people saying anything and everything and none of it being true. and also being legal, you have to see that slippery slope. You have to recognize the unintended and also the intended consequences of that. Now, we may think it's all fun and games until it's a person that you happen to like or support.
We need regulation on this stuff fast. There is no way you can stretch the definition of free speech to include this kind of manipulation and fakery.
Well, you can't stretch free speech and you can't stretch parody. All free speech is regulated. There are limits to free speech. And
Absolutely.
There are limits to parody. And that's why I don't understand people use these terms not understanding what they mean. Every freedom and right that we have in the Constitution has an associated boundary with it. Every single one. There are no unconstrained rights and freedoms articulated in the Constitution.
Yeah, and then when you throw Elon Musk into the mix, you add an order of magnitude of confusion to everything because his standards are so inconsistently applied. Mr. Free Speech Champion there on X/Twitter appears only to be for free speech of people he agrees with. I mean, look at the things that he'll tolerate and won't tolerate. He'll tolerate Andrew Tate calling somebody the N-word on Twitter, but he won't tolerate a simple group like, Dudes for Harris.
It was White Dudes for Harris.
White Dudes for Harris. He zapped their entire account yesterday. I don't know if it's been changed or reinstated.
It has been reinstated, just for the record. It has been reinstated.
All right. But you see my point, which is that the standards are inconsistent. And when you put somebody with way too much power over the public square, like Musk, into the mix, it's nothing but chaos.
Well, let me just say this. This particular video is not even within the guidelines and acceptable parameters on X. For him to post it was in violations of his own terms of service on his own site.
Yes, exactly. But you got to remember, this is the guy who held a poll on Twitter asking if he should step down. And when the answer came back a resounding yes, he just kind of forgot about it.
I don't take him seriously as far as what he says. I take him seriously as far as what he does. I take him seriously for the content that he may post, which can be dangerous. I take him seriously when he may post content which can be termed as election manipulation, honestly. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about deep fakes and AI for the purpose of deceiving. Now, he may find it funny, but that doesn't make it parody.
No, you're 100% right. When you can't tell if it's real or not, that is not just parody.
Right. You can't, going back to my last analogy before we go to break, if Weird Al Yankovic put out a song called Eat It using Michael Jackson's voice, Michael Jackson's face, and Michael Jackson's body and tried to pass it off as Michael Jackson actually sang the song Eat It, we all know that wouldn't be legal.
Oh, Michael Jackson would have sued Weird Al into homelessness. Are you kidding me?
That's all I'm saying. It's Later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And yesterday I was talking about how I think I see the world differently than other people, talking about whether I was like someone who was on the spectrum as an adult. I look at the news differently than other people. I know I do. I don't look at it and see the same things as other people. And this is another story that I think people are missing it. I think they're really missing something. You know that company behind the ammo vending machines? And it was a big deal. It's like, oh my gosh, selling ammo in vending machines. It may spread to other states. Well, yeah, it's going to spread to other states. It may come to California. Well, of course it's going to come to California. Number one, the United States is a gun culture. Okay, so if there's a proliferation of guns, there's going to be a proliferation of ammo. If we want it to make it easier for people to get guns, what's the logical next step? We're going to make it easier for people to get ammo. But I've not heard anyone say what I'm about to tell you. And this is why I think people have missed the main point of this story. But let me just give you the basics so you know what's going on, and then I'll give you some analysis. American Rounds, based in Dallas, says it has plans to install more ammo vending machines in other states, specifically out west, including California. Now, there aren't any specific locations yet. They're just saying, hey, we're coming to California. The company debuted its machines earlier this month at 8 stores, including some in Texas, Alabama, and Oklahoma. and the machines use an identification scanner and facial recognition software to verify the purchaser's age and are quick and easy to use as a computer tablet. All right. Not trying to get into the gun debate. I'm going to tell you what has not been discussed. Some years ago, I was on a federal grand jury, and we saw all these sorts of crimes, obviously federal crimes, of everything from child porn to mail fraud to larceny, anything, interstate crime, drugs, immigration, anything which would qualify as federal crimes. What I didn't know going in and learned since, that if you purchase ammunition in one place and it's used across state lines, it's a federal crime, assuming that you commit a federal crime. If you purchase ammo, which was manufactured in one state, and it's used in the commission of a crime in another state, that's also a federal crime, and you'll catch federal charges. What I've yet to hear anyone say is, if you buy ammo here in these vending machines, depending on where they're manufactured, and it's used in the commission of a crime, you could unwittingly and unknowingly be slapped with federal charges. The only reason I know that is because I sat on a federal grand jury for 4 freaking months, listening to some 10 to 20 cases each Tuesday for 4 months. And that was a recurring case. That's how the feds would get people time and time again. They would have ammo which was purchased in one place or manufactured in one place, and then they would commit a crime in the Central District of California. That was the jurisdiction that I was sitting on the grand jury for, and they would get him or her or them on federal charges as it relates to firearms or ammo. And I've yet to hear anyone talk about this, because it matters where the ammo would be made, it matters where it would be sold, and it matters where you would be used in the commission of a crime or something in which you could be charged. This is the story, I think, that is not being discussed as much as it should. The unintended consequences of where you buy your ammunition, where it's made, and then how you can get caught up in a trick bag, because if it's used here or there in a certain way, you could be looking at federal charges. As opposed to the ammo that you know that's made in California, you're purchasing it in California, and it's not necessarily being distributed in an interstate manner. That's what I think there's going to be more discussion of later on when we find out more about these vending machines, how they're making the ammo available, and where the ammo is coming from. It's later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640. We are live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
The news has been updated. Click to refresh. KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio.